Midnight Marauders by Tribe Called Quest. I remember hearing Tribe Called Quest when I was about 10, 11 years old, roughly. Um, I remember finding a Love Movement CD on a CD rack that my mom had. Um, and it had a boombox. So I would put it in the boombox, and immediately I fell in love with the sounds. Um, it just reminded me, it just gave me a nostalgic feeling. I remember giving me nostalgic feeling for a past that I never lived, which is kind of weird considering that I was very young at the time. But I just remember falling in love. Now, fast forward years later, I mean, obviously I knew about Tribe since I was a kid. I knew about Beat It Out the Bum, Cannot Kick It, the hit songs, surface level, Obviously I knew who they were. But at the time, I wasn't really that familiar with who they were at the time. The Love Movement was released in '98. This was probably 2005 when I found the CD. And I just remember being enamored by it. So fast forward years later, I'm getting back into, music. I had to do my homework. So I just had to really go back and study their albums. And the album that I fell in love with, actually, I fell in love with Low End Theory first. That's the first album that I stuck with that I remember blasting every fucking day. The Low End Theory is probably one of the first albums I really dug into as far as their catalog. Then I had to go back to People's Extinction Travels. And then I eventually dove into Midnight Marauders, which we're going to be talking about today. And tell you why I love it. I'm going to tell you the reason why I love it and why it means so much to me, especially Q-Tip as a producer and an artist. Just the group in general, their whole catalog is probably one of the best catalogs in any music genre, period. So I remember having a... So I remember diving into this album specifically in high school, around junior year maybe. I had bought it. This is when iPhones were out, so I bought it on iTunes. I don't know what made me buy it or what influenced me to buy it. I just remember that I loved Tribe when I was a kid. Hearing that Love Movement album and what it did for me as a kid. So I wanted to see what this would do for me, and lo and behold, I fell in love with it quickly. No time wasted. Listen to the album front to back every day in high school when I was a junior, going into my senior year. And ever since then, I've been playing it non-stop, whenever. It's an all-purpose album. This album is probably one of the few albums that you can play in any season, in any time, any setting, any mood, any emotion that you're going through. This is the perfect album for me. Especially when I'm feeling some type of way, when I have a down day, this is a perfect album to play. All 14 tracks, there's really no skippable tracks on this. Really, I always have a new favorite every time I go back to it. Even just going back to it after 15 years of listening to it, and it's never left my rotation. And the reason why I want to explain why it's my favorite is because I think the soundscape of it just really, it was unlike anything that I've heard coming out at that time, since I've been going back to those years of when hip hop was at its prime in the 90s. And this album sticks out to me because I think it's the perfect sound of the 90s. It encapsulated everything, about the 90s, being that it was in 93. And it's probably like the perfect soundscape of the 90s. I'm not saying other albums didn't have that, but for me, it just exemplified for me what a 90s hip hop album sounds like. With the samples, with the drums, with Fife rapping, Q-Tip rapping, and it's just so much to take from it, especially when you're listening to it. It ages well, considering the fact that it came out so long ago, because it's not gimmicky. It didn't rely on any gimmicks. it wasn't too preachy either. You know, it played the perfect middle ground for me as a rap hip hop album. You know, especially comparatively to Low End People's Extinction Travels. It was a street album, but not too street, but also not too preachy. You know, to where you don't want to listen to it anymore, or where you just feel like it's beaten down too hard. You know, but it doesn't. It doesn't do any of that. It just does what it does. It doesn't fake its funk. It's a very humanistic album too, in the sense that it's an everyday people album. It doesn't rely on gangster tropes or doesn't rely on um, the normal what a normal street rap album will rely on. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but for me as my palette as my palette is considered, as far as my palette's considered, I think that this defines who I am as a person, as far as like relatability and who I am as a person, because who I am is who Q-Tip was back in those days, especially compared to compared to the other rappers. Q-Tip was the chill guy. He was the cool guy, but he wasn't like a stranger to the the life that he's from Queens, Linden Boulevard. So you can get a little bit of that in this album. Get a little bit of everything, and it's just a perfect album for me. There's no skips, like literally no skips. It's a perfect album, no skips at all. It's a perfect party album. It's a perfect chill album. It's a perfect summertime album. It's a perfect wintertime album. It's a perfect sad album. It's a perfect happy album. If you're angry, why not? But I think it's just an all-around exceptional album when you're talking about 90s hip-hop. And I would encourage anybody out there to listen to this front to back and just let it adorn you with the sounds, the samples, the voices of Fife and Q-Tip. You know, and look at this cover. It's just iconic. You know, just iconic. You see all the hip hop people on it. You know, familiar faces on it. You know, if you ever get a chance to look at the album, you'll probably recognize some of the faces if you're a hip hop head. You know, it's just a perfect album. There's really nothing I can really say more about it.